Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. We're the Movie Couple. I'm Wendy.
I'm Dustin.
And this is our non-spoiler review for Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Ant-Man, the Wasp, and their family find themselves exploring the quantum realm, interacting with strange new creatures, and find themselves face-to-face with menacing new foes. Okay, so this is the first movie in Marvel's Phase 5, Quantumania. So this is the third installment for Ant-Man.
Yeah,
I guess, and the Wasp, because she was technically also in the first one.
Yeah, it just Ant-Man, then Ant-Man and the
Wasp,
and then Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania.
They just keep adding on to the title. The next one will be like Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then add whatever.
Quantumania and Modoc. Honestly, though, I was super excited for this film because, yes, it is the start of Phase 5. We're getting more introduced to Kang because we did get introduced to Kang
A version of Kang
in Loki, and we also get Modoc,
yes,
which I was very excited for. So there was a lot to look forward to this, and we also get introduced to a completely new realm, or is it? It's not the. It's the quantum realm. Yes, yeah. Quantum realm. Because I didn't know if it was a quantum realm or if it's not an alternate universe. And because Marvel's really starting to kind of like, well, it's not this, but it's a plane.
Well,
that was the other one that I was thinking of.
Call it the multiverse for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is a pretty densely packed movie. The runtime is just a little over 2 hours. And I feel like they use every single second of this movie. I will say this is also the most sci-fi-like movie out of all of the Marvel movies, which is, there's a lot of them, and I feel like Ant-Man specifically has always leaned on a little bit of the sci-fi. I guess you can say that for the Hulk too, but like...
Yeah, a little bit more scientific, because,
Hulk, technically, like, specific Mark Ruffalo solo movie, we haven't really gotten, technically.
Yeah, I really wish that we would.
And I will say, even though the title for this movie is Ant-Man and the Wasp, this is really more of the whole family, everybody. So we've got Scott, we've got Hope, we've got Cassie, we've got Hank, and we've got Michelle Pfeiffer's character, Janet, sorry. Whoa, my brain.
And you know what? They did a really good job with the family dynamic on this too. I loved the interactions between them. I loved how they actually started to build a lot more of Janice's character in this and what she did in the quantum realm. Because that was actually the big question. You're sitting here looking at Ant-Man and the Wasp and you're like, well, wait a second. If she's been trapped in this wasteland, how did she get all of this stuff that she has? Well, it wasn't really a wasteland. It was an entirely new universe, with really cool characters, really cool creatures, these weird kind of just things that are like half cellular beings that are kind of intelligent blobs.
Yeah. So if you've seen the movie, it's animated, it's by Disney, it's called Strange World, which we also have a review on the channel for. The creature concept and the design, it's not similar, but it does remind me of some of the creatures we saw in the Quantum Realm, as well as if you're into other animated shows like The Legend of Vox Machina. Recently, they just went to the Fey Realm. So some of those creatures also reminded me of that. So it's one of those things where nothing is exactly what it seems. So what I really enjoyed about this movie is that it's got a pretty large cast. You can almost say this is an ensemble, a mini ensemble movie.
Yeah.
But everybody got their time to shine. Specifically, I feel like Janet, Michelle Pfeiffer, got to sort of lead the movie in a way. And I just love watching her because for the longest time, it's like, what happened to her? What happened down there? And you saw in the trailer that, she's kind of like hush-hush about her experience there. And like, why is that? Who does she see? So that gets explained in the movie, and I think another really cool component to this movie is the relationship between Scott and Cassie, because we've already seen Scott, develop a relationship between him and Hank, and of him and Hope.
Mm-hmm.
So what was missing was Cassie, because of all the years that wasn't accounted for, him being put away, and then the snap and all that stuff. So we really get to see that that relationship, that dynamic, and I really enjoy seeing that. And getting to Cassie Lang coming into her own, her curiosity with technology and things like that.
And how she takes after her father a lot
Yes.
too. You know, she wants to help. She wants to be that hero like her dad, but it gets her into trouble a lot of the time. You know, not just at the beginning was what we see Cassie and that first butting of heads between Cassie and Scott, but also when they're in the quantum realm, that's kind of getting her into trouble a lot. But it really does grow her character, and I cannot wait to see her in the future because it's pretty obvious that Marvel is working towards a young Avengers. We already have Kate Bishop. We're going to have Sting from Cassie. We're going to have Stinger. I think you're right. I think it's Stinger. But we're also going to see a couple
of stature, depending on what they decide to go with.
Very true.
Yeah.
And they've already planted seeds for other heroes as well. So we're definitely going to see more of her, and I want to because she did a really good job in this role.
Yeah, absolutely. So that part of the movie, I really enjoyed exploring the depth of the quantum realm, all the weirdness, and all the other different characters that you will get to meet in the movie, which we won't dive too much into just in case you feel like that's a spoiler, but there are yes, lots of people to meet. So we will talk about it probably a little bit more in depth in our spoiler review because I feel like this review is going to need one because we're trying to stay away from the spoilers. So let's talk about the other component, literally the other half of the title of this movie, Quantumania, and what they find, or who, I guess, they find in there. So it's all over the trailer, so unless you haven't watched the trailer, you wouldn't know this. But Jonathan Majors play a huge role now in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is Kang. So like Dustin said earlier, Kang was introduced to us, a version of Kang was introduced to us in Loki, and now we have Kang in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and essentially the story gives a little bit of insight on, well actually all the insights on how he ended up there and why he's still there, and the dangerous kind of that person, I guess, how dangerous Kang is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not just because of his technology, but also because of just how ruthless he can be and also just how smart he can be.
Yes.
And honestly, Jonathan Majors did an amazing job in this, especially the difference between him in Loki and him in this movie. Where in Loki, he kind of seems like a quirky kind of like, almost like a goofball almost, where he's
a mad scientist.
A mad scientist is a really good way of saying it. But in this one, you can tell he is
darker,
stern, he is stoic, he is nothing rattles his resolve, and he is intense. And if you get in his way, you're going to get plowed over.
Yeah, so there's a lot of very interesting things that he says, and I said it in my like initial reaction tweet, just trying to be like very vague. I'm like, how much does this give away? Basically, you want to pay attention to everything Kang says. And remember, just because I know how Marvel likes to build their characters and come way back later, it will be like 8 movies in and they'll come back like, remember when this Kang said this? And you're like, oh my gosh! So that's why I say pay attention to everything he says. And also, it's Jonathan Majors and he's very captivating on screen. Now the other, I guess, person we get to meet is Modoc, which is also in the trailer. So it's not quite the same origin as the comic book. You'll see in the movie how that came to be. So that was one of the things I actually didn't like in this movie.
Yeah, I have to admit, I really was expecting more from Modoc. He's not in it that much.
He's not in it that much, but the parts he is in is quite... He is like the scene stealer. When you look like Modoc... It's impossible to not steal a scene. And I get Modoc isn't like a serious type of character. So it's not really the comedy and the writing and the dialogue and the interactions he has. But I think it's just the origins. I feel, how do I want to say it? A little bit of, not quite as like that exactly. So this probably is not the best comparison. But... like, I felt like how when we were watching the Mandarin unfold, and then we got Travis. It's not quite like that.
Trevor.
Trevor. But it kind of gave me a little bit of like when I finally finished the movie, I was like, okay.
Yeah, I kind of expected more. And honestly, it's really hard to adapt Modoc. He is just a ridiculous character all on his own.
Yes.
I feel like he was a little underutilized.
Yeah.
He wasn't quite the Modoc that I wanted to see, but I kind of did enjoy what they did with him.
Yes.
But I really wish that they would have... I felt like they kind of... It wasn't as bad as Bane and Batman and Robin, but they kind of threw him in there as just like a... Oh, yeah, and, here's a Modoc.
Right. So, yeah, that was... I think for the audiences who are not familiar at all with Modoc, they're going to be fine. They'll find him very entertaining, a lot of fun to watch. But I think for the comic fans who have collected Modoc things, they may not... I mean, I'd love to be wrong, because I want everybody to like go in and have a good time.
Yeah.
But they might walk out of the theater going, I don't know about this version of this take on Modoc. So with that said, there's another... I feel like I kind of set myself up for this as far as my overall feels about the movie. I was really excited for this, the first movie for Phase 5.
Yeah.
And I have loved the previous Ant-Man films. So I was really excited to see, and we get like everybody in this, plus Jonathan Majors. So that's really awesome. But I found the story, especially like second act, to me it felt a little flat. I felt like it was a little bit too much explainer. And because they packed that 2 hour to the fullest, which is actually really good, but it switched back and forth so much, like I felt like sometimes there was a lot going on, but also not moving forward at the same time, specifically in the second act. But the third act, it really picks up. And I was like, okay, I'm back at it again. I'm back in it.
They did a good job on, pulling you back in. And honestly, even though the movie is over 2 hours, there was really never a moment that I was like, oh my God, how long has this been going? I was entertained, even on the slower parts and the parts that they were going a little bit off course. I still had fun with this. But overall, Wendy, what would you give this movie as a rating?
Before we do the rating, I just want to say, I don't think this is a spoiler. Obviously, you guys know Marvel movies. You sit through the entirety of the credits. We're not going to talk about them here because the movie's not out, and that's a huge spoiler. But we will say that there's 2.
Yes.
So make sure you stay till the end. It's a Marvel film. We all know by now. It's Phase 5.
So if you want, you can watch the one that's right, like the pre-end credit, and then quickly run to the bathroom and then come back, because you'll have the full, unless there's like
Disagree.
a lot.
just stick it out. Disagree. You sit in your seat until it is done. I was like, running back. Well, the line for the bathroom was really long.
Yeah.
Anyways, rating for the movie. You can find the movie couple rating in the video description below. I feel like for this movie, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot to take in, and I say that in the best way possible. I'm really happy we officially now have Kang in the MCU, and we also have Cassie Lang officially in the, she's all grown and she's doing her stuff, and it's really awesome. And this movie is very much, as far as tone and comedy goes, very much in line with the previous 2. It wasn't trying to be something different, and I think that's where the problem came from, was me. And I got into my own headcanon because I thought Kang, and in my head, I turned it into my expectation to this is going to be the Endgame movie, when it is in fact Ant-Man 3 with an introduction of Kang. So I kind of set myself up for that one. Overall, it's a lot of fun. You're going to enjoy seeing the quantum realm, the world itself.
Very beautiful.
It's very beautiful. It's really interesting.
I also have to admit,
yes,
on that note, I do believe that Marvel bumped up their CGI game on this one. When they're in the quantum realm,
it was expensive.
That was expensive. You're looking at it and like, wow, it's very beautiful. It's very seamless. I really couldn't tell some parts which ones were. Obviously, there were some things that you're like, oh yeah, that has to be CGI. But there's a lot of times where I'm like, I'm not quite sure. So they did a really good job on blending the 2.
Yeah, it is the most sci-fi Marvel movie to date. I felt like I was watching like a sci-fi with a side of Star Wars and Strange World. And for my rating for this movie, it is check it out.
Same here. Honestly, I had lots of fun, enjoyed it. There were some things that I didn't quite enjoy, which was I was a little upset with Modoc, and there were some times that I did think they kind of went off on little tangents. But overall, still enjoyed it. Check it out.
And there you have it. That is our non-spoiler review for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Let us know your thoughts when you see the movie by commenting in the comment section below this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.